rubs off on the customer. Very quickly, they start buying into your belief system to Friday nights, and this trance music was doing something for me. This is nice and euphoric. I can do this. So I'll hear a car door half a mile up the road slam, and my brain will be like, what was that? Because it shouldn't have been there. And the voice at the other end of the phone came back. No, I don't think that's a very good idea, because you'll be talking to our legal department very quickly.
In this week's episode of the Engaging Marketeer, Darren's taking the week off, so you got me, Nick Arkell. I'll be speaking to Adam Pracy. He's been a friend of mine for a few years, but he first came to my attention over 25 years ago as a music producer. But there is so much more to the man. He's run an IT business. He's also worked in the production of music for computer games. We'll talk about what a cutthroat business that was, how he got into music, how he almost got into legal trouble. And of course, we do need to ask him, why does he go around referring to himself as the conductor and the cowboy?
I think I always wanted to be a producer, not a pop star. I never wanted to be famous, but I think it comes from watching Jean-Michel, Pet Shop Boys, Erasure, etc., and thinking, I can do that. And that's kind of how I ended up here. Through a convoluted route of video games, etc.
Well, let's talk about your journey then. So you became a musician eventually. That was your profession after many, many years. But what led you to become what you are now?
So I used to work in the video game industry. I used to work for a company called, I've worked for several of the big well-known companies, EA, Eidos. Eidos are less known today quite so much, but they were responsible for bringing Tomb Raider, etc. to market. And also EA, I had worked for EA previously on a contract for a game called Space Hulk, The Vengeance of Blood Angels, which got amazing reviews, and I guess catapulted me into, I don't want to say the limelight, but catapulted me into other people's interests. And so I then, the Space Hulk contract for EA, I was working freelance from home when I did that. I then, because I did such a good job of that and it reviewed so well, I then got basically invited down to become part of the staff of this software development company, which at the time was called Tigon, which is a mixture of tiger and lion. Fun fact, I believe Vin Diesel also had a company called Tigon for a short while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, different company.
It's quite a random company name, isn't it, for two people to have the same exact... Was it spelt the same way? Or?
Yeah, Tigon, Tigon. And so, I moved down to Somerset to start that job. I've been here ever since. That was about, 15 years ago. I worked for the software company for a few years. And then Eidos pulled the plug. This is not that unusual in video game. Basically, about 1 in 10 games that are started actually make it to completion to get released. It's that harsh. Because the suits think they know better. It's one of those situations where all the suits at Eidos thought they knew better than the guys writing the video game down in Somerset. Anyway, long story short, they pulled the funding, which was quite a lot of money. And so I needed a job. And so I wrote Feeling This Way.
Oh, okay. So you turned to music. See, a lot of musicians, they turn to music because it's primarily a passion, right?
Agreed.
But
not that many people can make it pay and make it into a living.
Wow. I didn't realize that's how it happened for you. So you were out of the job.
Out of a job, yep. Needed to cover the bills.
And you needed to cover the bills, and you turned to music to do that.
I had recently started going clubbing, had fallen in love with trance, and thought, I could do that. Let's give it a go. And I wrote Feeling This Way, first track.
Well, I think at some point during the podcast, I will give people a snippet of that track. Maybe round about now, but okay. Maybe at the start, maybe the finish. I'm not sure yet. When I come back to edit it afterwards, we'll see.
No, and
So that was a track, that was your big hit from back then. And
well, I didn't expect it to be a big hit. I just thought, no, not at all. No, I just thought I've got something quite good here. Back then, as I think I have said in other interviews, I was just happy to get a track signed, never mind for it to become as popular and have Jules playing it literally every week. And so, yeah, that kind of changed my life.
We should probably explain before we go any further with that story who Jules is.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you now, Adam, when I'm in the office with Darren, the usual presenter of this podcast, and in fact, everybody else I work with, if I turn to them and say, Judge Jules, Dave Pearce, these names that people not just in trance music know, but people in dance music generally know, and people who've grown up during a certain era would know, they don't. I get lots of blank looks and I'm thinking, wow, you don't know who Judge Jules is. So
why don't you explain who Royden, more commonly known as Judge Jules, was a Radio 1 DJ for many, many years. He used to do Friday nights, and then Dave Pearce would do Sunday nights. And yeah, on a Friday night, if you're going out somewhere, that's what you used to listen to before you were going out, was like the weekend warm-up. And he was my boss for several years. I was going to an A&R guy, and so when I would write a track, I would send it in, and Jules would either okay it or not.
Well, there's another story that leads to that I wanted to ask you about, actually, because I know a little bit about it, but I think we need to hear it in your own words. So you made the track Feeling This Way, and that was your hit, but there was a lot more leading up to that, wasn't there? Getting signed by a label to events like that.
Yeah. So I had originally done a remix of Sonique's It Feels So Good. I didn't have any connection to her at all, or the label. And me, in my naivety at the time, just thought I'm going to remix that, because I just decided that's what I wanted to do. I didn't realise you probably needed permission, and I was probably stepping on people's toes. So I did this remix, had a load of white labels pressed. They were sitting in my hall, 500 or 1,000 of them, I can't remember how many. And I thought, I better give the record label a ring. They might not be very happy with me. It turns out it's a good job I did, because I gave the record label a ring, all sort of Johnny Big Balls, cocksure of myself, and I've done this remix of Sonique, and it's brilliant. I'm going to put it out. And the voice at the other end of the phone came back, no, I don't think that's a very good idea, because you'll be talking to our legal department very quickly. Turns out I was talking to Sam, which is Jules's brother, Sam O'Royden, and he was like the label manager then. And so here I am. I mean, looking back on it, it was an absolute bloody disaster. I've just rung up a label manager and said, I've done a remix of your track. I think it's great, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to put it out. What are you going to do about it? And basically was threatened with legal action. But in defense of them, they did sort of say, jump on a train, come up, we'll meet you. And I just got the red carpet treatment from there on. And when I went up to the label offices, and they were very excited about the remix, and they were like, "This is great, fantastic. Can you do something original?" And I wrote Feeling.
I always like that story. I've never heard of anybody doing that, where you produced a remix of a track by a very well-known artist at the time, Sonique.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute talent. She's had lots of hits in the charts, of course. I'm sure some people watching will have heard of her. You went out, did a remix, which a lot of people do, right? But you went out.
And it was a completely unofficial remix, and I just, partway through the track, she drops down to almost an a cappella. And so I just nicked that a cappella section and wrote the remix around it. When I sent it into them, they loved it so much, and they were like, "Do you want to do it officially?" I was like, "Yeah, go on then, send me the parts."
How many copies of this did you have pressed on white label before you asked them for permission?
500 or 1,000, I can't remember. I mean, I had literally committed to it. This is it. I was going to do it, and it was all going to work. And I was just a bit naive. And
naive in word.
Yeah. So I'm being polite. Fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to swear. You can cut that bit out.
It's all right. Swearing's fine.
Yeah. And I got lucky.
You did get lucky, because it could have gone the opposite way.
Yeah, I could have ended up in an awful lot of very serious trouble with the serious records legal team breathing down my neck, and it didn't pan out that way at all. So I'm incredibly lucky that they loved what I did and wanted to embrace it.
And then you ended up making that track, Feeling This Way, which anybody who likes dance music from that era, especially people who like trance music in particular, will know that tune because it's so unique. I bought it on CD back in the day, and I was going to show you that CD today because I've never shown you, even as a friend, but I've lost it.
I'm sure I've got a promo kicking around somewhere I can send to you. He says, looking down at his feet and going, look, I'm about to pull out here.
Oh, look at that, a promo CD.
Yeah, of Feeling This Way, Connection Cowboy. There we go. That's an official promo CD from the label, which I've hung on to because there aren't very many of them.
Well, then my original CD is special to me because it's, I bought it, 25 years ago. What year did it come out? Was it 2001?
2000. 2008.
So I've had that CD, almost 26 years then. Hence, it's gone missing somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I remember when I first heard that track.
People, including maybe yourself, that are saying they played the vinyl they've almost worn it out.
Well, the vinyl, I only had that over the past few years, you see. Whereas a CD I've owned since new. And you can only wear them out if you scratch them, right?
Agreed, yeah. Whereas vinyl doesn't. If you keep playing them, every time you play it, it effectively takes a little bit of shine off, a tiny bit.
Physical material, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's coming into the stylus is coming into contact, whereas a laser doesn't on a CD.
Well, we'll come back to music, I'm sure, but I wanted to ask you because Darren, the usual presenter of this podcast, he's a bit of a nerd, to say the least. I mean,
what are you saying, Nick?
It takes one to know one. I certainly fit that category myself, as you know, but Darren in particular, he has a background in video games. He used to work for Game before he started Engage Web. And so when I told him that I was interviewing someone who's a trance producer, he didn't have much interest. But when I then said that you used to make computer game music,
he had a lot more interest. Yeah,
it is crooked up. So I was going to ask you, I know you spoke about the companies you worked for, and there was certainly one that I remember in there, Tiger, and I'm sure Darren will probably know all of those company names, and I'm sure there are other people watching this.
But the thing is, the developer name didn't really get that well known. I mean, there was a logo on the box, but it was published by EA, so
okay,
which is an absolute global giant,
massive name, yeah.
And so
So tell us some of the games that you made music for.
Wow. Okay. So going back a bit further, because I'm talking PC. I did. I did some games for the Commodore Amiga before I did PC games, and so there's a couple of games, 2 or 3 games out there called Turbo Tracks, No Malone, Eco Phantoms. There's a few titles that kept me busy in my later teenage, early 20s, and then I moved on to the big boys. They were kind of small, independent, indie kind of games, but that were sort of published on the Commodore Amiga. And then, I moved on to the big boys for later on.
And I know that at least one of the games you made music for, it's on YouTube, isn't it? You've sent me a link in the past, so I'll get that. I'll get a link to that in the on YouTube when this podcast goes out, so people can sample some of your older work. Have you ever thought of going back to doing that?
Every now and again it crosses my mind, and maybe if I hadn't have done so well at being a proper musician, because people don't think video game musicians, they didn't when I was back then. Today it's probably a little bit different, but so every now and again it crosses my mind. But
I suppose with that in mind, that that attitude that people have with music generally, I've had it as a fan of trance music in particular, which of course is an electronic music genre known as EDM these days. I find that people do look down at it sometimes and don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I first encountered this growing up, being a huge fan of the Pet Shop Boys, and people at the time, my peers and my friends would go, well, there's no talent there. They just press a button. And you just think, that's not how it works. They need to know how to use the computer in order to press the button. So there's kind of two skill sets there. You've got to be a great musician and then great at using a computer. And so I totally agree. And I'm sure all the synth bands experienced this in the late 80s, early 90s, your Pet Shop Boys, your Erasure, your Depeche Mode and stuff like that. There was an opinion back then, well, it's not real music. The computer's making it. You're just pressing a button. Dearly, to this day, I wish I could find the make a hit button on my keyboard, but it's not there.
There's always a demo button on keyboards, right? I remember my first keyboard, it played, it was, I'm sure it was a song by the Beatles or something. Da, 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 da. She's got it. Oh, it wasn't Beatles, it was, Banana Armour did a version of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, baby, she's got it.
Yeah.
Don't know if that wasn't that I'm Your Venus?
Venus.
Like Venus Firestarter?
Something was it originally came out with Venus. It wasn't
the Animals, but in the late 60s, I think. Not that I should know that, but
you're not that old. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I believe Stock Aitken and Walkman then covered it as a Bananarama song, and that's probably the one that you're referring to.
Well, I mean, my keyboard version sounded like neither, really. It sounded like a 90s keyboard. Right, so we've spoken about the games, and that's where you started with music, and then you moved on to be a musician. How do you find the difference between... Because when you're making music as a musician, I know you actually got into it because you needed a job. But it's also a passion, right? And
yes, so when I was writing video game music, that wasn't so much as a kind of, that was more as a kind of a passion that got me into that. And then it was a kind of, when that sort of hit a brick wall when I was made redundant, then it was a case of, well, I need to make some money. I've got to pay the bills. What do I know? I'd recently started going out and clubbing, and I was going to Friday nights, and this trance music was doing something for me. This is nice and euphoric. I can do this. Let's have a punt at this. How can this be? Thinking it was going to be really difficult. And yeah, I got lucky. My first attempt went big.
Yeah, it was a huge track. I remember thinking, I looked at the CD, Conductor and the Cowboy. So when I heard it, I thought this is very unique. And that's hard to achieve in some ways with electronic music, when a lot of people are using the same synthesizers, the same production methods. And at the time you produced a lot of different equipment, right, which had to be set certain ways. And a lot of tracks started to sound the same. Somehow you came up with something that was different. How did you manage that?
Well, the truth be told, I wasn't trying to come up with something different. I was trying to come up with something the same as everybody else, and missed by a little bit.
So it was a happy accident, really.
Kind of, yeah. No, I didn't. As I was writing it, I didn't think, "Oh, I'm going to use a 303 for the arpeggio because no one's done that before," kind of thing. I wasn't specifically thinking, "Oh, let's make this a male-female duet because no one's ever done that before." It was just how it came naturally to me, and what the song sort of suggested it needed. Yeah.
I suppose this can happen in any area of creativity, can't it? Not just music. You can set out to be the same as other people, but actually end up different by accident.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to be the same as everybody else, as in I was just trying to get signed. Yeah, not only did I get signed, then Jules loved the track and, was playing it on Radio 1 consecutively for about 11 or 12 weeks. It was almost unheard of to get that kind of exposure.
How would you compare making your own track where you've written it and produced it from the start? It's all your own creation compared to, say, I mean, there's a couple of other things you've done, obviously, making the music for computer games where people have given you a spec, or indeed making remixes where you've got somebody else's tune to remix. You might have some kind of instructions and directions.
Remixes I find easier because you haven't kind of got to worry about the song side of things. That's already done. So somebody else has written the song. It's just my interpretation of it. Whereas when you're writing your own stuff, there's a lot more flexibility when you're writing your own stuff because you're not trying to follow the layout of somebody else's song, the chord progression, etc. You can't suddenly change a chord because that's not allowed, but you can in your own song, kind of thing, if you see what I mean.
Right, so you haven't got the creative challenge, you don't have the creative block as much.
But in some ways, that's kind of nice because that's one less thing that you have to worry about. You can just focus on producing the track really well. You haven't got to worry about, will that resolve properly? Does the lyric fit? Blah, blah, blah. It's all already there. It's just your interpretation of that.
Of course, yeah. Do you think your nerdy side, dare I say, do you think that makes your approach to production more of a regimented or structured process, as opposed to some people probably just throw all their creativity at a computer screen or indeed at a synthesizer back in the day and see what happens?
It teaches you to have structure to your workflow.
Okay.
So instead of just sitting there and hitting keys, go, well, that sounds good. You're at least, starting with some sort of knowledge of, I want this to be a dance track. So, well, probably start with a kick drum. I don't always start with a kick drum, but that's a good example. And then you can sort of write around those building blocks, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about something different you've done. I believe you've also worked in IT.
Yes, I ran my own IT company for about a decade.
Let's talk about that then, because that's a massive chunk of your life, your professional life. That, I mean, you said you got into music to make money. Let's be honest, we get into business to do the same.
Yeah, so when things started to go quiet, after feeling this way, a few years after that, I started to think, well, this isn't generating enough money now. Now I need to get a proper job.
Yeah.
And I couldn't face working for somebody else. Once you've been your own boss, it's very difficult to go back and work for somebody else because you're constantly thinking, we're doing that wrong. And so I decided to start my own IT support company where I'd provide service level contracts so that back then, not everyone was computer literate, like perhaps the youngsters all are today. So I was able to get contracts for like the local shopping centre, the big shopping mall in Taunton. I provided their support for them. So it was a 24-hour support contract. And so they could call me anytime, day or night, and I'd go down there and fix the problem.
And was it just you?
Yes.
Wow, quite the commitment then.
Yes, I suppose so. Looking back on it, I wouldn't do it again now, but in my late 20s, that seemed quite appealing.
I suppose in your late 20s, yeah, you feel invincible, don't you? You've just passed university age, but you're still young enough to push the limits a bit.
Yeah, I had tried to take over the world with the music. That had slowed to a point where I thought, well, let's try and take over the world with support. And so I started my own IT support company, ran it for about a decade, went round, got a few very, very lucrative contracts. The local shopping centre mall would have been one of them. And yeah, I provided support to them for years.
The way you describe it, it sounds so easy. It's almost like everything fell into place like your music did. Did you get lucky with that as well?
Well, you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to convince somebody to part with that money, quite a lot of money, in a support contract, service level agreement. So you've got to know your stuff. You can't bluff it. And even if you were bluffing it, you get found out quite quickly at the first phone call that you got for some support. If you can't answer the question, you're probably not getting the contract renewed. But me being me would have provided I suppose because I have had some previous retail experience in my younger years. I worked for Dixon's and Curry's and Comet and places like that. And so have had that retail experience. So it was a case of just sort of putting my knowledge together with my ability to be quite professional and polite with people. And that was a winning combination.
You mentioned Dixon's and Curry's there. What's your involvement with them then?
I first started working for Dixon's just when I was in my late teens, as most people do. Just I needed a job. Turns out I was quite good at it. What I mean by that is I find it very easy to sell things because I don't actually sell things. I just get enthusiastic. There's nothing sells a product quite like just being enthusiastic. And so if you can get excited about a TV or a hi-fi, that rubs off on the customer. Very quickly, they start buying into your belief system. And then a little while later, you've lifted them of 500 quid or £1,500 or whatever the telly was. And if you keep doing that often enough, the company you work for quite likes you.
And you don't necessarily need all the knowledge on those products to be able to get excited, do you? I suppose.
No. I mean, it helps if you've got a bit of nous about what the product is that you're selling. But if you can get enthusiastic in a genuine and sincere way, that is incredibly infectious.
And did any of this knowledge and liking of technology and eventually leading to running your own IT company, was there any education behind this? Any official qualifications?
No, I'm entirely self-taught. In fact, when I was at school, my computer science teacher essentially used to, today we're going to do this, and this. Adam, just amuse yourself.
Really?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I knew more than he did. What could he teach me? It was just like, just don't get in my way, don't disrupt the class, and we'll get on fine. And so that's kind of where I was at.
Wow.
In fact, sometimes he would come and double check things with me, double check the answer before teaching the rest of the class.
You were the expert.
Yes, I was the geek nerd, whatever you want to call me, that knew how to do it all from about age 10 or whatever. Obviously, I'm talking, this is probably slightly later, probably age 12 when I'm talking about school.
Dare I ask what kind of computers you were using at that age, at the age of 10?
So I was very similar to a lot of the nerds, geeks around at the time that just had home computers made available to them at semi-sensible prices, and so they were in the reach of an awful lot of families. And so I started with a Spectrum, went to a Commodore 64, then an Amiga, and then onto a PC and doing things all via PC. But I suppose that at school it would have been more BBC Micros.
Yes.
I've just seen your face light up because your school had them too. They kind of got the educational contract, I think. And so an awful lot.
Yeah, everywhere.
Either had a BBC Micro or an Electron, which was like a cheap BBC, wasn't it?
But the thick floppy disks, didn't they? The actual floppy disks.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. They still used 5.5 inch, or some of them even were 8-inch floppy disks.
8-inch? Do you know, I never got to use those.
I think you and I are probably more circa 5.25 or 5.5.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. But yes, there was a forerunner to those. As with all technology, it gets reduced in size and capacity. And so we came in probably the second level of that, which was the 5.25 inch floppy disk. But there was a forerunner to that, the 8 or whatever it was.
You had me excited at Commodore 64, to be honest, before you even mentioned the BBC computers. I had one of those. In fact, I still got one knocking about somewhere. No idea where.
I've recently been thinking about buying another one because I don't know if you know this, a bunch of YouTubers, fans got together and bought the Commodore name. And so they've just put Commodore 64s back into production. You can buy a brand new Commodore 64 now.
I didn't know this.
2026. I believe they're going to be moving on to the Amiga, but at the moment, they've just bought the Commodore name, the brand, done it all legitimately. It's all legal, all licensed, and have just put into production literally a couple of months ago. You could start to buy the first ones off.
What a project of passion, and the success of probably today's promotional methods, social media, to something like that is so
100%. Yeah. Gives you that reach.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because social media now is obviously the way people promote online. It's one of the ways they do it, on top of course, through their own website and through everything we do at Engage Web. But how do you think that's changed the way that people promote themselves in the music industry, for instance?
It's become a necessary evil. I'm not a particular fan of social media. I'm quite a shy person, and so the idea of putting myself out there to sell something is kind of my worst nightmare, really, because I'm quite shy and retiring. But it's a necessary evil, and once again, I don't particularly like doing it, but I appear to be quite good at it. And so I've never wanted to. I've tried very hard to avoid falling into this. There's a certain group of people, and you all know who they are, but I'm not going to name them, that put out stuff on social media for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Here's an announcement about the announcement about the announcement about. Do you know what I mean? They're sort of teasing it, and I understand how we got there, but it's just that I didn't want to be that person.
How genuine do you think it is when people post?
I think their desire to crack the algorithm and to make themselves more popular is genuine, but I believe we've created an awful lot of narcissists along the way.
It's a pity, isn't it? Because I think my personal opinion is that people can come across as narcissists on social media when actually in real life they're not.
They're not, yeah, but that's the game they have to play.
Yeah, it is a game, isn't it?
It is exactly that. And once you learn how to play the game, you can get quite good at it.
Indeed.
Until one of the big platforms decides to change the algorithm. You've got to work out what's changed, because suddenly I'm not getting as many hits as I used to get. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. I don't think that all these, a bit like you, I don't think all these people are narcissists, but that is the kind of the mold that we are forcing people into if you want to do well today. You have to. A few years ago, it's not so much now, but there was this big thing about being authentic. And that is very, very, very true. Be authentic, be yourself. Don't try and be somebody else. But I also think that that's now less important today. We've kind of moved through the world, the age of authenticity. It's still incredibly important, and never treat your audience like they're stupid, because they're not, and they will see through the inauthenticity very quickly. Me being me didn't really appeal to me, and so I almost wanted to become a reaction against that. So when I post some news, it's because I've got some genuine bloody news, and I'm not going to tease it with the announcement about the announcement about the announcement coming in 3 days. Just make the bloody announcement in 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, I will. I only see anybody not in this industry. It's a thing, isn't it? People announcing an announcement now, and we laugh at it.
Because, but I understand how we got there, because the game teaches you these rules of you need to post every day at the same time. I haven't got anything to post about. Oh, I've got a release coming up in 3 or 4 days' time, or a week's time. I'll tease it. Yeah. So you start teasing that. And do we really need that? Probably not.
I suppose that does come from the human psychology of teasing. I mean, teasing as a word, there's a reason that word exists, because teasing in certain situations is something.
It's unnecessary. Yeah. But how much do we need to tease it? Then my choice is that I only need to tease it once a week before the release or whatever. I don't need to tease it every day, because we've all got someone in our feeds that does this, that over posts, and it just becomes noise after a while, and you just scroll past it. Yeah, and I don't want to be that. So I want to make sure when I post something, it's interesting enough that people don't scroll past it, and I haven't abused that privilege that I've got of their eyeballs, or there is, for that short amount of time as the post scrolls past. So make it about something that's genuinely interesting, be that a new release, a tour, or whatever, and then don't abuse that. Say your piece and fuck off.
Oh, if there was ever a quote I'd take from you, it's a bit of advice, that one. Brilliant.
Because people become oversaturated or bored, however you want to look at it, very quickly.
Yeah.
Humans have a very small attention span, especially in this world that we've created of social media. And now we've almost created an entire generation of people that have about a 15-second attention span. And if you haven't hooked them in those 10, 15 seconds, that's it. They're done. They've scrolled on. So I understand how it happens, but I just never wanted to be an artist like that.
I was going to joke about that and pretend I'd not listened to you, but that would have been an obvious joke. I was watching something yesterday. I was at my mum's, and it was Ben Fogle. He was visiting China, and he discovered this new type of TV soap, which is filmed in vertical format for platforms like TikTok.
Okay, pet hate. TVs are 16:9, not 9:16. I appreciate the younger generation all hold their phones vertically. I'm not one of those people when I take a picture. There's a reason you can rotate it. It's so that it fits the TV that you've got. I've got a nice big telly. Why do I want to just use a tiny little slither in the middle of it?
Okay, you're a techie person. I'm a techie person. What do we think of the future, though? Do we think that it could go as far as TVs becoming portrait?
It already has. You can buy some screens now, high-end screens from Samsung that actually rotate. And in fact, quite a lot of computer monitors do now. And there's actually quite a lot of the youngsters will have a screen next to them, because it's become quite popular to have dual screens, sometimes triple screens. And in my day, we would have dual or triple screens, but they would always be in widescreen format.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the kids have decided, I'm going to have Discord, my chat application on that vertically. Yeah. And it's, do I ever think TV probably won't ever, because of the natural viewing format that we're all used to. I can't ever see us going to watch a movie in vertical. I don't know. I think TV is going to stay as widescreen, 16:9. There's too much has gone into it, has been invested into that format for it to suddenly change. It's also, I mean, the only reason that we hold our phones up vertically is because that's the way we carry them. We don't watch TVs vertically because they would look stupid in their living rooms.
They would. I mean, I agree with you on your opinion. I just wonder, with the way things have rapidly changed so much with technology, I mean, you look at how technology has evolved so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Are we being naive about it, maybe, in assuming that can't change? I don't know. I suppose films, they're all in horizontal.
Yeah, widescreen, yeah. And so do I ever think the movie industry, Hollywood, is ever going to move to 9:60? No, I don't. Because then they'd have to rebuild cinemas. And that's just never going to happen.
Or they just shut altogether.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we're probably fairly close to that already. Sadly, yep.
One thing that's not died yet, and I hope never will, is the genre of trance music. We spoke about it quite early on in this episode of the Engaging Marketeer, because that is ultimately how I know you. We met maybe 3 years ago, and this is all through me streaming online through my Twitch channel.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd get a bit of promo in there. And we got chatting and became friends.
And I keep coming back to your stream because you do something that a lot of people don't, and maybe it's because of you've got experience in the commercial radio industry. Maybe not. I don't know. But you are very good at the chat, and a lot of DJs they just don't do the chat. No, I understand the reasons why, but if you bring a very commercial radio flavor to your stream, and I like that. That's why I keep coming back.
It probably is my radio background, as what I do away from being a web developer here. Well, thank you firstly. I know you enjoy my streams. I love you being there. One thing I would go into there with your point.
I apologize for not coming along recently.
It's okay. It's all right. People have lives. I shed a little tear when I don't see you there in the chat, but a few tunes later, I'm okay. I was going to talk to you about, because I remember quite early on in this chatting and getting to know each other, before we really knew each other that well, you were very proud and out as being an introvert. And you explained this to me, because this isn't something, I've had friends over the years who I would just call shy.
No, I'm incredibly introverted. It does get described as shy or whatever, but it's actually just, I'm just introverted. I find a social occasion quite a lot of effort, quite tiring. And so I'm just looking forward to that social occasion being over so I could get back to my space, my house, my lounge, whatever it happens to be, where I can recharge my batteries. Extroverts are the opposite. They thrive on that, going out and seeing people, and they draw energy from that, and then they have to go home to their empty house afterwards, whereas I quite like that.
Do you think some people can switch between? Because personally I feel like I'm one or the other depending on what day it is.
Yes, yeah. It's possible for me to switch between. When I know I've got an engagement coming up where I've got to be extroverted, then I can turn it on when I need to, but I don't like to be like that all of the time. I am just quite shy and quiet, or introverted. I have no problem with my own company. Lots of people don't like their own company, and the idea of spending several days alone with themselves would terrify them. Whereas the idea of spending several days alone with other people terrifies me. I'd much rather be alone.
Yeah. Do you think this is common in the music industry?
That's a good question.
Just based on the people the people you've met over the years.
It constantly surprises me how many other producers are introverted. So yes, I do think it's quite common.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's something to do with our personalities or what. I don't know what it is to do with. But yes, there are quite an awful lot of producers that are quite introverted and would prefer not to have to do the social thing at all.
Yeah, there's another producer, a mutual friend of ours, who I remember when I first got speaking to him. He was telling me that a lot of his days as DJ. There's a course.
Are we talking about Stuart?
We are talking about Stuart, yeah. I remember him telling me that his early days of being a DJ alongside being a music producer, he would go to a gig, he'd perform his duties as a DJ, as an artist, and then he'd go home.
And I can completely understand that. If I was in his situation, I probably would have done exactly the same thing. But I probably also would have questioned myself. This is what I want to do. Am I supposed to be doing that? Or am I supposed to stick around afterwards and schmooze?
Yeah. Do you think it comes from I mean, as a producer, I should point out here to anybody who's watching and not really understanding the electronic music industry, a lot of the people who succeed do two completely different jobs in one. You've got your production side, which in itself splits into, of course, being a musician as well. And then you've got the performance side, which is being a DJ.
The production side is all about being a perfectionist. It drives my wife up the wall. Such a perfectionist. If I'm going to do something, it's got to be perfect, or otherwise, why am I bothering to do it? If somebody else could make a hash of it, I'll let them do it. If I'm going to do it properly and do it to the best of my ability.
Do you think you put more time than you should into it?
Yeah, probably, but that's what separates the men from the boys, I suppose. That's the people that find success, is because they've invested that time in their production skills, in being but being a producer is all about removing what you don't want. A lot of people think that it's something else, but my entire job, really, apart from the making up of the notes and stuff, is about removing stuff that shouldn't be there. That's how you produce it. That's how you EQ a track. You're removing all of the unwanted noise.
That's an interesting way of doing things, because I don't know if that would apply to many other professions, really.
No, I completely agree. And so if I'm sitting watching telly of an evening and I'll hear a thump or a car door, so that my brain is tuned to find things that shouldn't be there. And so I'll hear a car door half a mile up the road slam, and my brain will be like, what was that? Because it shouldn't have been there. And I'm very good at finding the thing that shouldn't be there, whether that's, a frequency while I'm EQing a track or whatever, or it's just some nosy neighbours outside. My brain is attuned to find the thing that shouldn't be there and remove it.
It's an interesting angle. I didn't realise I'd never seen production that way, actually. But that's why I'm not.
That's essentially what we're doing. Many people won't necessarily admit that, but it's all about putting stuff in. I view that from the opposite angle, if you like. It's all about taking stuff out and just.
I think I've never heard anyone saying that.
Leaving the good stuff. Most synth patches, when you find an instrument or whatever, that sounds lovely. What's it going to sound like with everything else going on? So when you introduce that instrument into your mix, suddenly it sounds different, and so you need to remove the harsh frequencies that make it stand out and don't make it sound pleasant and attractive.
So with all that perfectionist attitude in mind, all that time you're spending, do you think with yourself and producers generally, who will probably put the same amount of time into these tracks as you are, do you think that leads to being an introvert?
Well, it's a very lonely occupation, because a lot of the time you are sat on your own. But don't start feeling sorry for me. That is by choice, and I quite like that. I often work through the night because there's no phone calls, there's no interruptions. I can just crack on. I get so much more done at night than I do during the day when there's a phone call or a knock at the door or whatever to distract me. Whereas if I just get in my zone in the studio from 11 at night till whatever, 5, 6 in the morning, there's no interruptions. You get so much done.
Yeah, I can completely agree with that. I've been the same myself. Although when you're doing a job such as a web developer for someone like Engage Web, I have to be there 9 till 5. But yeah, I fully.
I know, I appreciate that you have a 9 to 5 job, but do you actually have to be there, or could you do it at 1 in the morning?
I personally could do it at 1 in the morning, on a personal level. But I think as a company,
I mean, obviously you've got clients and stuff that isn't going to be around at 1 in the morning, but you can talk to them during the day, and then you can structure your day so that you start work 1 in the morning, midnight-ish, whatever, when it's quieting down.
You could be reshaping the way people work in the marketing industry. Let's talk about marketing then, because I mean, you've done several things. Yes, you worked in Dixon's and Curry's. That's where you started. And I'm sure you encountered the way they marketed as retailers. But you've also done your IT business. And of course, you've been a musician and you've worked in the gaming. What are the differences in the way things are marketed in those different industries you worked in?
Well, working for Dixon's or Curry's is a very large organization. And so back when I was doing it, that they would have massive advertising budgets that you would see on television, in the newspapers and stuff like that. Whereas we don't have today, we don't have that. It's kind of very much more grassroots. You kind of have to do it yourself. It'd be lovely to have a huge marketing budget, but often we don't get that. And so you have to kind of grassroots it in some way. And I guess that's what social media is just that's your way of advertising things. And coming back to the point we were making earlier, I think if you over advertise something, you can actually harm it.
Yeah, make people sick of you. I sometimes wonder if I do that on my social media, but I'm not the expert in social media. I'm the expert in building websites. So
I think the fact that you manage to bring in the size of audience that you do week in, week out, is testament to you not overdoing it.
It's a challenge to get that balance.
You get it just about right.
Thank you. You can probably hear the doubt in my mind quite a lot when we chat. And I am known to be someone who can be very self-deprecating. And we spoke about Stuart, actually, our mutual friend in Trance. And he once said to me a year or two ago, said, "Nick, stop self-deprecating." And for me, that comes down to the psychology, I think.
Sort of understand why you do it. If you say the negative comment yourself before anybody else gets in there, you've kind of disabled that angle of attack, haven't you? Because you've said it yourself.
Yeah, I suppose that's the immediate effect. But what I was going to ask you really is, as a musician in particular, and as a creative artist, how do you find the psychology of not just being in the music industry, because that's been the case for a long time, but also social media, because it does have an effect on people, both those things.
So firstly, when it comes to the work, I prefer to let the work speak for itself. So you'll very rarely hear me bigging up at one of my tracks or saying, "Oh, I've written this banger," or whatever. Just let the work speak for itself. People will work out if it's a banger or not quite quickly. And so you don't need to blow that trumpet. At least that's how I feel anyway. I'm sure there are other artists out there that feel completely differently, but that's what's worked for me. Less is more.
I suppose the big tunes, Michael Jackson, for instance, the big songs by him and all the other hugely successful artists in the world, their music didn't become successful because of them promoting it.
Exactly. Word of mouth. Someone bought it, heard it on a radio station and played it to a friend. That's grassroots advertising. And advertising you haven't had to pay for.
And how do you feel about the whole popularity thing? Because it's been amplified by social media, hasn't it?
Yes.
Being the popular person.
Yeah, I think years ago I was much more bothered about it. Today, not bothered about it at all. But maybe that's because I've found my place and I've got my fan base and so maybe I don't stress about it too much. But
you got your happy place.
Yeah. And I post about something when there is something to post about. I don't, abuse the eyeballs or the ears or whatever. And so, yeah, there comes a point where, happy place is a sweet spot. There's a nice position that I feel like I've carved myself out where I don't have to post something every day.
And what would you say to younger people who are, this is a question that often gets asked of artists, what would you say to the younger generation who are producing music? They've obviously got better tools to do it these days, which, you know, is helpful to them. But at the same time, they've got a bigger challenge of going up against more people trying to do it. How would you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you just said there. And also there's been a tendency in the last probably decade or slightly more where the young and up and coming talent feels like they have to do it all themselves. And you don't have to do it all yourself.
What the music, the production?
Yeah, everything. The music, the production, the artwork, the promotion, that they just feel like they have to do it all themselves. And you don't have to do it all yourself.
So delegation.
Well, yeah, to an extent. I mean, I appreciate a lot of people don't necessarily want to delegate because then they've lost control. But quality, not quantity.
Okay. Quality and quantity.
Yeah, is what I would say. Make the work amazing, the best that you can make it, rather than pumping out 10 tracks. Just do one amazing track. That'll get you much further.
Good advice. Yeah.
Because today there has become a tendency for people to do the opposite, quantity, not quality. They're banging out a track every week or every few days or whatever. And it's a bit like, is that special or is it just another track? I'd rather spend 2 or 3 months on a track that is perfect, that I am properly proud of, than bang out half a dozen tracks in the same time. So, yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, they're all right. But that's just me being a perfectionist, I suppose.
It's probably not just you though, is it? It's
but that would be my advice is don't cut corners, don't rush, quality, not quantity.
I suppose with the fast moving world, the way things are, short attention spans, it's probably tempting to produce lots of mediocre material as opposed to a small amount of quality.
Yes, it's natural also that once you've had some success, you think, well, that worked well. I'll just repeat that, rinse and repeat. The more I can rinse and repeat, the more I'm going to make. That's a slippery slope, and you don't necessarily want to go down there because actually it can be quite counterproductive and work against you for putting too much stuff out because you're oversaturating your market, your fans.
Yeah, I mean, you said several times now, haven't you, that put too much out there and it becomes noise.
Whereas if I just put out, I mean, this horrifies some other artists, but I would prefer to put out 3 or 4 very good quality tracks a year that I've crafted and honed to perfection, rather than just banging out, 1 a week, 50 a year, whatever. Because also I'm very good at realizing that while I might be able to do that for a few weeks, I can't sustain that. And so I've made a rod for my own back then, haven't I? Because it's a bit like YouTube or any of the social platforms. Consistency is key. Make a routine and stick to it, whatever that routine might be. But I would suggest to you that once a week is plenty. Because you've got to maintain that for effectively forever now.
Yeah. Someone else said that to me recently, actually, with TikTok. They got loads of followers on their videos with thousands and thousands of views. But he said to me, the minute you stop posting,
you lose it.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't post that often, and so there's much less for me to lose.
I've got to admit, when I see someone post who's not posted in a while on social media, whether it's a personal thing or a professional like yourself about your music, I do notice it.
Exactly my point. Thank you for proving my point. I don't have to fight for eyeballs anymore or headspace for people. As you've just said in your own words, if I put a post up now, and I haven't posted in months, if I put a post up now, I know the algorithm is going to show that post to quite a lot of people. Not just anybody, quite a lot of relevant people. And so I'm going to get quite a lot of engagement.
Yeah.
because it's A, good quality, B, interesting, C, I haven't spammed you. And so all of these things play into how much attention a person gives to something like that. And as you've just said, whoever it might be, hasn't posted in a while, and the algorithm surfaces that to you, and you think, oh, I haven't seen that person post for a while. I'll pay attention to that.
It's not something I'd really thought about, but the minute you said it, I thought, wait a second, yeah.
And also, I haven't made a rod for my own back where I have to feel like I have to post something every day or every week. I'm very old school in my approach. I'll shout about something when I've got something to shout about.
It's a good approach. We're almost at the end of our time, really. I think we've gone over slightly, but don't fade that.
I thought that might happen.
Well, we like to have a chat, don't we? But yeah, I mean, we were speaking about new artists, and there was something I did want to ask you about, and I know that you're involved in a music label as well. Obviously, you've written music for labels before. You've remixed. You spoke about Serious Records back in the day. You released your big track, "Feeling This Way," and that was just Jules' brother, right?
Yes, Sam.
But now you're involved in a relatively new label. Tell me about it.
Well, it's been going a couple of 18 months, couple of years now. Simon Lost Witness, another very good friend of mine, wanted to start a label. Asked me if I wanted to be involved. I said, yeah, why not? Go on then. He asked me because of my history and credibility and knowledge, he asked me if I would head up his A&R team for him, which I do. And it's very interesting. It's very rewarding because it's nice to give back to the industry and give somebody else that break that I got.
So you're paying it forward, really.
Yeah, exactly that. It's very rewarding when you get a bit older. The rewarding stuff is why you do it.
Well, I'll stick a link to the label as well under the interview so people can have a look at that and check out some new music. And that's pretty much that's everything we have to speak about today. Before we stop though, let us know how, if people want to get in touch with you, ask about your music or anything else really, what's the best way to do that? It could be your website.
Conductor Cowboy has a website. We are on all the social platforms. I'm not difficult to find. Just reach out.
Just look for Conductor Cowboy. And you know what? I wouldn't usually do this, but one more question before we go. What we've not explained is the name Conductor and the Cowboy.
So many years ago, when I used to go clubbing, I got myself a bit of a reputation for conducting the breakdowns and builds. My production partner at the time, who's also the male vocal on Feeling This Way, used to like wearing a cowboy hat. And so very quickly, the name stuck, Conductor and Cowboy. And it sounded catchy and sounded a bit different, sounded a bit like a Pet Shop Boys lyric, which appealed to me. And so I thought, yeah, that's a good name. And every single day, I think, what a great name that is, because it stands out. It's not Neutron, or I'm sorry if you are called Neutron, I haven't singled you out on purpose, but do you know what I mean? It's a name that stands out and is quite catchy.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, Adam, to speak to you as a friend and as a professional, a fellow artist.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed it. It's been nice to chat to you, Nick.